With a call to action for change in engineering education through the publication of the Engineer of 2020, new ABET accreditation pressures, and industry requests, it is unsurprising that decisions about engineering pedagogies are being considered more by engineering faculty. Many of these changes have proven to increase student retention, increase student persistence, and even increase student achievement. With engineering education's new focus, a review of the classroom methods used in engineering schools is not only important but timely. This video will explore the present and historical teaching methods in engineering education. Let us begin with an exploration of some of the pedagogies of the past and the present. Many engineering students and faculty are intimately familiar with the lecture hall, and that makes it an interesting place to begin our discussion. From 1935 to 1965, engineering shifted from hands-on, practice-based curricula to curricula that emphasized mathematical modeling and theory-based approaches. This required a supporting change in pedagogical approaches. In passive teaching styles like lectures, students are assumed to enter the course with minds like an empty vessel, ready to be filled with knowledge. Early engineering programs focused their pedagogies on the curricula of the time. In the early 1820s, the need for formally trained engineers began to emerge. Most instruction in these early engineering departments and technical schools placed great emphasis upon practicality and active approaches to teaching and instruction. Such instruction was marked by liberal amounts of shop work, exercises in the drafting room, and practice in the field, with only occasional lectures or demonstrations by science instructors. These active pedagogies were introduced under strong pressure from practicing engineers. They found graduates of more classroom-based colleges ill-equipped to handle the routine problems of industry. These practicing engineers put considerable pressure upon the schools to define their curricula and methods to meet the demands of the real world. By the close of the century, their impact was reflected in changes by schools, providing shop training for early generations of formally trained engineers, alongside courses of scientific principles. The efforts of engineering educators to meet the demands of their profession, academic status, and employers of engineers have been an ongoing theme during engineering education history. Indeed, finding an effective teaching approach to support industry shifts has remained a focus and concern throughout engineering's history. By the end of the 19th century, schools lagged considerably behind the rapidly changing needs of the science-based industries. Even in larger institutions like Yale, Michigan, Wisconsin, MIT, and Purdue, where adequate shop facilities were available for training in real-world techniques, the equipment quickly became obsolete with advances in industry. In the modern classroom, many new approaches have attempted to bridge the gap between active and passive pedagogies in support of an approach to engineering education that reassesses the balance between student learning in theory and in practice. Modern design-based learning began to gain traction in engineering schools in the 1980s, and since then, such activities have continued to grow in focus. This method is grounded in classical approaches to education that create student-centered and effective ways of growing students' knowledge and capabilities. Design learning has proven to be effective in teaching skills valued by employers, including team-based work, understanding of customer needs, and concept generation. Design is about problem solving. Design education is learning how to apply practical methods, prior knowledge, and theoretical information to solve new problems. ABET criteria acknowledge design skills as a foundational engineering ability, and design-based teaching methods have many ties to Dewey's goals of linking experience with reflection and linking understanding with doing. Design learning in the modern iteration is not an entirely new concept. It shares many ties with earlier approaches to engineering education that have tied together the practical and the theoretical in a hands-on way. Instruction in the laboratory has a long history in engineering education. Applying science requires knowledge of both theory and hands-on practice. While instruction in theory lends itself to classroom learning, practical experience is often best gained in the physical laboratory. Laboratory experimentation and work was initially fueled by the Industrial Revolution and the Morrill Land Grant Act of 1862. Institutions developed curricula that placed heavy emphasis on laboratory instruction and taught a new generation of young engineers how to design and build everything from turbines to railroads and canals to chemical plants. As we continue into the 21st century, it becomes increasingly clear that the current educational paradigm that guides the growth of engineering from kindergarten through doctoral programs is far from perfect. Numerous approaches have been put forth to transform education at all levels. Many of these approaches are informed by the return of a philosophy more focused on efforts to form students' process of inquiry. and of matching the method of teaching to the material being taught. If we can link these various approaches together as expressions of the philosophy of experiential education, perhaps we can advance educational transformation. Furthermore, as we move further into the 21st century, it becomes increasingly clear that we must develop citizens who can actively participate in working more globally and toward creating a just and compassionate world. With a call to action for change in engineering education through the publication of the Engineer of 2020, new ABET Accreditation pressures, and industry requests, many engineering schools have begun to take a hard look at their pedagogical choices. Such changes have been proven to increase retention, increase student persistence, and even increase student achievement. As the curriculum of engineering has shifted over the years, engineering pedagogies have changed with it. While it may be tempting to say that pedagogies have improved in the move from the machine shop to the laboratory to the lecture and beyond, what is more vital is the importance that has long been shown when pedagogies and curricula are considered in support of one another rather than as separate entities. No pedagogy is inherently good or bad. Throughout history, a variety of pedagogies have been used in engineering education, while the pedagogies of engineering education have shifted along with the content as we continue to learn more about how students learn. It is important that classrooms continue to change with the content and focus of engineering education, but it is also important that we do not forget our past.